Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of Charts in Perspective, where we use charts to dive into the world of economics and financial markets. I'm Jennifer Nash, an economic and market research analyst for VettaFi. When we think of the U.S. government's finances, we often focus on the massive debt. But what about the assets? What does Uncle Sam actually own, and which asset is the largest? Today, we're going to answer those questions. The federal government's financial assets include U.S. official reserve assets, checkable deposits and currency, other loans and advances, total mortgages, consumer credit student loans, corporate equities, trade receivables, total taxes receivable, and other. According to the latest quarterly data through Q4 of last year, the largest asset among this list is consumer credit student loans. A few years ago, for a brief period in 2020, the answer was checkable deposits and currency. This account soared as a result of massive stimulus and reduced consumption from the COVID pandemic. But with that said, for the majority of the past 12 years, student loans have been the government's largest asset. The rapid growth in student debt has been an ongoing topic in the financial press. Here we can see the dramatic growth of federal student loans since the Great Recession, using a log scale to highlight the percentage change. The difference between the 2007 and 2024 figures is striking, showcasing the rapid expansion of this asset. The loan balance has risen an astonishing 1,313% over this time frame. Our next chart presents the same data, but on a linear scale, emphasizing the sheer magnitude of the increase in student loan balances. The steep upward trend underscores the increasing financial burden on students and the government's role as a major lender. But these charts only include federal loans to students. Private loans increase the debt burden. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York regularly tracks household debt and credit, and in their most recent update, they calculated student loan debt to be $1.6 trillion. But back to our initial question, what does Uncle Sam actually own, and which asset is the largest? Student loans may be a liability on the consumer side, but they constitute an asset for Uncle Sam. As of Q4 2024, student loans accounted for the largest percentage of total federal assets at 33.5%. This is nearly twice the size of U.S. official reserve assets, more than twice the size of checkable deposits and currency, almost 4 times the size of taxes receivable, and over 8 times the size of total mortgages. To better visualize the relative weight of student loans in the government's asset portfolio, this chart shows the percentage of total federal assets that are student loans. It shows the peak in 2017, where student loans made up 46.7% of total federal government assets, and the current value of 33.5%. The composition of U.S. government's largest assets has shifted over time. Student loans, though currently dominant, have been preceded by other categories. Other loans and advances held the largest share from the late 1970s to the early 90s, and again in the late 90s. U.S. official reserve assets were the largest in the mid-90s, and for the majority of the 2000s until 2012. A brief exception occurred during the Great Financial Crisis, when checkable deposits and currency became the largest asset, something we saw more recently as well in 2020. Now here's a look at each asset over time from the pie chart above, beginning in 2007. Each component's y-axis has been scaled to better reflect the individual changes within each asset. U.S. official reserve assets are just below their all-time high from Q3 of last year. Again, we can see the spike in checkable deposits and currency in 2020, but also earlier on our timeline during the Great Recession. Other loans and advances is another category that increased dramatically following the 2020 pandemic, reaching a new high in 2022. Total mortgages are currently at a record high. Trade receivables are about 7% off their all-time high from the previous quarter. And total taxes receivable jumped to new highs in 2017 and has been relatively stable since then, with seasonal spikes in the first quarter of each year. Of course, assets are sadly the trivial side of Uncle Sam's financial accounts balance sheet, about $4.54 trillion. The liability side totaled nearly $34 trillion at the end of Q4 2024. Thank you for tuning in. For more economic and market insights, you can find my content regularly on the Advisor Perspective website under the AP Chart section.
Stuck in the same patterns and routines? Trying to take your practice to the next level? You need to register for the Exchange Conference. In March 2025, industry experts will be gathering in Las Vegas to share actionable information, network, and learn the latest innovations in practice management. Invest in your greatest asset, yourself, by registering at exchangeetf.com today.